Well, I hope you all enjoyed that. No, it's a little bit cartoonish, but I hope you got some interesting information from that. Let's go ahead and continue taking our notes here with our next slide. Now, besides the Sons of Liberty, there was other groups throughout the colonies that worked towards trying to end the taxes and laws that were being imposed by Great Britain. One was called the Committees of Correspondence. Now, these Committees of Correspondence were a group, actually, there were several different groups, that acted as like secret assemblies that helped to run the government, that would make decisions, would decide how to do things without British officials knowing about it. One of the texts that I read about it called them almost shadow governments that would take representatives from different parts of the colonies and discuss things that couldn't be discussed in the official colonial assemblies. They talked about things about organizing resistance to British taxes, boycotting British goods. Two ways that the colonies fought against these laws that we talked about was boycotting the goods, not buying things from Britain, and by finding ways to resist the taxes. Now the Sons of Liberty are famous for finding ways of resisting the taxes by their more violent tactics of harassing tax collectors and the Boston Tea Party, of course. Now, one of the more important things to note about the committees of correspondence is they help put together something called the First Continental Congress. The First Continental Congress is the first gathering of all the different colonies in one group to help make decisions about what they were going to do with these increasing problems coming from Great Britain with the taxes and the laws and everything like that. Um, Now, it's important to note that the First Continental Congress had some division of it. There were a lot of people who were patriots, believing that the colonies should separate themselves from the rest of Great Britain and become their own country. There were people who were loyalists, who thought that any idea of leaving Great Britain was treason, and very, very, very much wanted to stay British and stay part of the British Empire. And there were people who were in the middle as well, people who hadn't really made a decision one way or the other what was going to happen. Some of the people who were kind of in between included George Washington. George Washington was at this First Continental Congress, and he is one of the people who was kind of in between. Now, another famous person who was mentioned at the who was at the First Continental Congress, and I'd be writing his name down in your notes for sure, is a man named Patrick Henry. And Patrick Henry was famous for noting that the different members of the colony could not just think of their own colonies, but they had to think of themselves as Americans, as one group of people working together, not separate colonies, each trying to do their own thing. Patrick Henry is going to come up again. He's a very famous person from the Revolutionary War itself, and he's going to be a major player in that. But this is the first time we really see him come up on the big stage here, saying that the colonies need to work together. They need to be part of the solution to this, not fighting against one another. A couple other things to note: there's 50 leaders from 12 colonies that met to discuss the growing issues in the colonies. This happened in September of 1774. Only 12 of the 13 colonies were represented, but that's pretty good considering the immense size of all the colonies and the differing viewpoints. Their final decision at the end of the First Continental Congress was they were going to send respectful letters to King George to urge him to reconsider their complaints and to recognize the rights of the colonists. Now, this was a kind of a simple thing to do, but they all felt it was the proper thing to do because they weren't ready to declare a revolution or to break away from Great Britain. They still wanted to try to come to some kind of peaceful solution among the two groups. And we're going to see what happens to that as we go through here.